Good afternoon. So I am a lead product manager for the Telegraph Media Group, and I head up our online products. So that includes telegraph.co.uk as well as our commercial e-commerce areas. So over the past 2 years, the Telegraph has transformed itself digitally. We embarked on a big project to re-platform ourselves to embrace a new CMS and to think of things differently in the digital area. Now, as I was saying, over the 2 years, so not only did we re-platform to a whole new CMS, but we built a whole new front-end system for the consumers. So it's pretty different to how we approached it before. It is responsive, so it was the first of our sites to go responsive, so that's across all breakpoints. But now we're ended the phase of migration. We started to think, okay, well now we're on this new platform. We can do things differently. We can embrace the new technology that the new CMS gives us to change the way that we do things, and advertising was one of them. So our commercial areas were very intrigued to move into this world of viewability. But really, actually, there were two things that we needed to adopt. So what I'm going to talk through is some of the principles that we kind of went through, and then tell the story of how we integrated that. So the first thing that we wanted to do was really understand the problem that we were facing. So not only were we on a brand new platform, a brand new website, which is brilliant, engagement went up, but really there was an underlying problem, and that was the shift to viewability. So the two biggest problems that we needed to understand was, number one, if we have a look at what across a year from January 2015 to May this year, there was a big surge in mobile, and if we have a look at where we are today, it's obviously increasing even more. So we know there was a big emphasis on mobile versus desktop. The second problem, and this is probably the catalyst for us to embark on the project, was a quote from one of our biggest clients, and they said that they will be dropping impression-based creatives to go to a more viewable format. So we didn't have before we embraced viewability, we measured at the normal rates of ad viewability. So then this was really the catalyst to say, well, right, okay, so how can we be better? How can we make creators better, but at the same time ensure that we have a good experience for our users? So we started to define what the goal was, and what we really wanted to do was distill what the essence of it was. So at the beginning of this project of viewability, we very clearly stated that we want to remove all current IABs and reskins and only have one single advert, because that's going to be great for consumers, or at least that's what the hypothesis was. Now that we had a great starting goal, which obviously changed, but it was where we wanted to head towards, then we said, okay, well, that's great. So let's now put the user first. So at the Telegraph, we have a very good user research and user experience team, and we value our readers. So we always wanted to make sure that no matter what the offering was, it was better, it was the best, it enabled the best reading experience for the user. And if you consider where we were, and I didn't include this, unfortunately, but if you consider what the old website was, we had a lot of adverts, and a traditional publisher like the Telegraph gets different revenue streams. So not only do we have our e-commerce or sponsored and ads, so there's a lot of competing real estate on the page. So we scrapped that all away. We had our clear goal, and we said, let's put the user first. And this is where we embarked on a project, and this is not going to make much sense, but I'll talk you through it, is to say, well, it's not just an ad. We're not just going to put a sticky ad that's going to stick down the page and it's going to jitter as you scroll. We really want to say, what does the user want? The user is using a multitude of devices, tablets, phones, phablets, etc. So what we said, okay, well, what are the breakpoints? So this is not representative of all the breakpoints. But we said, well, if we were going to have a sticky add or a sticky double MP or whatever it is, what is the best thing for that breakpoint? So then we created all these rules around what is the right thing for a 900 pixel breakpoint, for a 320, et cetera, et cetera. So then we started to test different. And this was conceptual. Nothing was created just yet. And then once we established what the right kind of ratio was, okay, we said, well, this isn't going to annoy users. So then we said, okay, we can take it further. Now that we understood what we wanted to do, we wanted to really understand the impact. And this is where we went and did some multivariate testing around what was the right solution. So impact for the Telegraph is quite different to maybe other publishers out there. We have a multitude of metrics. It's not just an ad impression. It's not just viewability. It's how long a user is reading, how long they're spending on an article, how many articles are they reading, what is the click-through rate to sponsored content, what's the click-through rate to e-commerce. There's a lot of metrics that we had. So what we said is, if we are going to do a sticky ad format, how is that going to impact the other stuff, the editorial engagement or the commercial revenue drivers? So then we did a multivariate test to really learn around the different variants that we could do with this is obviously a desktop and tablet. What we could do with the right-hand rail around sticky adverts. So it wasn't just, let's just put an ad and see how it tests. It's, well, what if we were to only have adverts and no lists, which obviously drive engagement? What if we were to have only a sticky list and not have a sticky ad? This was really to understand the impact of that next valuable action that we want the user to have. And what was interesting is, even though we had a breadth of metrics, the one, so variation 4, which is where you have a sticky ad and a list, came up not on top, but then when balancing it with the other metrics, there wasn't a significant detraction. So it gave us faith that, this is a model that we can go forward with. And then we started to adapt and learn. So just a brief recap of how we compare. So we know that there are things on mobile called a sticky bottom, which is at the bottom, whereas some publishers do the sticky top. We tested them. We tested the sticky top, we tested the sticky bottom, and then we said, you know what, the sticky bottom works well for us. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. The other thing that we wanted to do was build full flexibility. Now, some of you might not be able to do this, but we, embarking on the new CMS, we were. So we were able to put ad management within the CMS. So that gave us full control. So we could say that X channel is going to have X execution on this breakpoint, whereas this is going to have something different. So we were controlling that all within the CMS, and so the CMS can talk with the ad server. So that gave us a whole lot of control. Now, this is the example of you might have seen it, of the sticky on tablet and desktop. And if we have a look at mobile, you can see we did the sticky bottom. So one thing that we did, it wasn't just putting something at the bottom here. We wanted to understand, well, how can we make this great for users as well as for agencies? So we then thought about, well, what if the ad refreshed? So we tested that as well. We tested if we have a viewable ad for 10 seconds and then refreshed it, what would that be? And I will show you. I'll show you that a bit more. It's all great that we created a sticky ad format on mobile and desktop, etc. But really, we wanted to understand user attitudes because they were important. So users are important to the Telegraph. And to do this, we embarked on a big project with crowd emotion, and it was using 3 different types of technologies. It was using facial recognition, eye tracking, and surveys, and we tested this with over 300 users. If we have a look at attention, so how likely are people going to be engaged, we found that when using traditional formats of banner adverts, people are engaged for around 1.3 seconds, whereas the first sticky ad that people had was 6 seconds, and when we refreshed the ad, it was 5 seconds. So I will caveat that this with when we were testing this, we had quite good creative. It was round about the time where we had a deal with Burberry, so then we had quite nice creative. So I will say that take this with a pinch of salt. But engagement went up. What we also found is when the new ad loaded, there was obviously a big shift in the attention. So the fact that we're having this reloading ad was actually was working for us in terms of attention. Then we asked people a question to see how well they remembered it. So after their session, we said, what campaign was that you saw? And the likelihood to remember with the standard ads was 27%. With sticky ads, it was 44%. And that's largely because, obviously, as you scroll down the page, it was there, it was persistent, and users did remember and did engage with it. Another aspect of it was the emotional recognition. So the no ads was the benchmark. And then we said, well, how does standard and sticky apply? Surprisingly, we found that sticky was actually more pleasurable. It was more enjoyable. And that's obviously largely down to the creative that was used. The creative was of a Burberry, and it did have a woman. And you did see her face, and she was looking at you. So these are the kind of things that did also factor into that. But then when comparing against the standard, you can see that the positive emotion went up and the negative emotion went down. So actually, you know what? It is a better experience for users. Then we had a look at, well, what's right for the Telegraph? So how suitable is it for the Telegraph, and how likely are they to recommend for the Telegraph? And then what we found is 36 against the standard ads, 36% of people said that sticky ad formats are more suitable for the Telegraph. And the likelihood to recommend was around 63 for the sticky ads. Now, you're probably asking, why is this? Why is a sticky ad winning? And that's largely because we removed a lot from the page. And by removing a lot and having this one ad, the pages were loading faster. It was more pleasurable to scroll because of the white space. Now, so I boiled this down into what success really is, and it was about understanding the problem. It was starting with a clear goal, putting the user first, understanding the impact, building the flexibility, and understanding the attitudes. So as Ben and the other and Paul were saying in the previous session, it's not just about viewability as a key metric. You do need to understand, and this is what the full flexibility gives us. It allows us to say, well, you know what, we're going to carry on testing. We do have a lot of different metrics, and we don't stop here. Even though we implemented a time rotational one where we can guarantee that an advert will be viewable for 100% for 10 seconds, that's not the only metric. We want to understand how users can read content on business versus fashion versus luxury, and then we can start tailoring. So this is merely the first venture into something of viewability. And what we were surprised is it was adopted pretty well. So viewability increased by doing this, increased 50% for us. So that was a brilliant metric. And then if we have a look at engagement, so how users are engaged with the Telegraph and how many they consume overall, how many articles they consume within a session, they were all showing signs of growth. So you'll be surprised by removing quite a lot of that clutter on the page and having this one single format. Not only is it beneficial for you if you're an advertiser, but actually it's more beneficial for the reader as well. The other thing that I wanted to say, that we love sticky so much within our sponsored content, you can see that we have this Tropicana sticky banner. And this is really to tell people or the clients who create who partner with us to create sponsored content that, you know what, we can have that brand affiliation with you, and it does work. Doing the multivariate testing, doing the user research, anything sticky on a page will have an impact. So we did look at whether putting a list, a sticky list, will that increase engagement, and it did. So it's understanding those trade-offs. And that's it. So I hope you found that enjoyable. Thank you very much.